Hello, welcome along to Sportsbet TV ahead of a very big weekend's racing in Britain, where it's Classic Weekend at Newmarket over Saturday the 30th of April and Sunday the 1st of May. My name is Paul Alster. I'm really looking forward to this weekend's racing. It promises to be very, very exciting, and I'm offering 4 selections for you, all of them at very tasty each way prices. So get your pens and papers ready. We'll be coming on to them in just a few moments. If you happen to be joining me for the very first time, please press the subscribe button just below this screen, and then you'll be kept in touch with all my various thoughts on races throughout the season, both on the flat and over the jumps, at the weekends, and at the big feature festival meetings. Well, as I said, 4 selections for this weekend. There were 3 last weekend, and overall we showed a profit, most particularly, of course, because of the valiant effort of Step Back, who ran an absolute blinder in the Bet365 Gold Cup at Sandown, the old Whitbread Gold Cup. He did exactly what I thought he would do, which is blast off in front and try and run them into the ground. He did that with the majority of the field, but in the end, he couldn't keep going from the home turn and eventually came home 4th, but with just about every firm paying 4 places each way. The 33-to-1 SP meant a very nice profit for us each way punters. And it was so very nearly a big each way double because Devil Waller was just run out of 3rd, having been back from 25-to-1 to 16-to-1 at Ripon earlier in the day. Again, a horse who has come down in the weights. I think he will be one to keep an eye on. And I noted that the Racing Post Northern correspondent, Colin Russell, an old colleague of mine, noted him as a particular horse to follow in the coming weeks, Devil Waller. The other suggestion was a Big Bear Hug over at Haydock. Now, he ran as though something was wrong. Jockey looking down 3 furlongs out, he was allowed to coast home. The ground was much quicker than anticipated. And of course, there was a big furore at Haydock Park with a number of trainers refusing to run their horses because they'd said it was good to soft in places, and it was changed to good to firm, I think, after the first race. Richard Hughes in particular was really, he was incandescent. He brought all his horses up there and couldn't run any of them on the ground. So this is one of the problems when we're punting and relying on clocks of the courses to give us the right ground description. It certainly didn't help poor old Big Bear Hug, but I hope that one will be back in due course. Well, now let's crack on. 3 selections for 2,000 guineas day on Saturday and 1 selection in the 1,000 guineas on Sunday. And taking you first to Newmarket, where the advance going is good to firm in places for the Saturday card. And my first race of interest is the 225. Now, this is the 9 furlong Suffolk handicap. There are 10 runners, and it looks a pretty hot race, as they pretty much all are at this classic weekend. And Peter Chappell-Hyam's Fast Medicine is a horse who's likely to go off favourite, been really consistent last term. They gelded him over the winter, and he came out and absolutely rattled up in a Nottingham handicap 2 weeks ago. He just got a £5 penalty. He's got a big chance, but this will be tougher than the Nottingham race. Now, of course, anything that Charlie Appleby runs at the moment, you've got to keep a very close eye on. And of course, he's got 2 big names in the 2,000 guineas on Saturday. He runs a horse called Dahabi. Now, it hasn't run for a year and a half, 567 days. It looked like a proper horse when it had 3 runs in 2020, including when 3rd in the Group 3 Autumn Stakes at Newmarket on the Rolling Mile in October of 2020. Now, he'll obviously have done plenty of work, but he'll need to be absolutely spot on to win this. Roger Varian, well, he runs a horse called Move in Time, who won first time out at Newmarket in 2021, taking a 10 furlong maiden. And he certainly wasn't disgraced in Group 3 enlisted company after that. And there's also Andrew Balding's horse, Notre Belle Bete, 3 from 3 on the all-weather this winter, including the Lincoln trial at Wolverhampton. And he didn't run badly at all on turf in the Lincoln itself when he was 9th. He picks up a £5 penalty for a more recent win at Kempton. But eventually I've come down on the side of a horse here called Turntable. It's trained by Chris Wall, and is the mount of Holly Doyle, who, of course, recently got married to longtime boyfriend Tom Marquand. We wish Holly and Tom all the very best. Holly Doyle, of course, one of the best ever female jockeys. And she partners this Turntable, who's a 6-year-old. He's won 4 of his 18, and he's placed in 4 more. Now, he's not run for 7 months. since he won over the course and distance on good to firm ground at the late September meeting off 81, and he's only been raised £3. Now, the thing about this horse, he's had 2 other runs at the Rowley Mile track. He won in May of 2021 over a mile off 77, and further back in October 2020 on fairly unsuitable heavy ground, he still ran very well at the track when 4th of 12. He's also 1 from 2 on the July course and was only just beaten in the race. He failed to win there. So plain and simple, this turntable loves the track. He loves Newmarket anyway. He's fairly weighted. He's got Holly Doyon, and she has got a 21% strike rate when riding for Chris Wall. So that would make the horse more or less a 4-to-1 chance on the jockey trainer form together. And also Chris Wall is doing very well at the moment. He's not running too many, but 3 of his last 7 runners have won. So the form is there for all to see. Now, turntable offered at 10-to-1 each way. At the time of this recording, Friday lunchtime, with the likes of Bet Victor, Coral and Parry Match. I think he'll go really well turntable on a horse that on a course even that he absolutely loves. So turntable 225 Newmarket is my first selection. Then just over half an hour later, the first of the group races on Saturday is the Palace House Stakes, the 3 o'clock. It's 5 furlongs, 12 runners, good to firm in places. And there's been a bit of an anti-post move for a horse called Twilight Calls, trained by Henry Candy, who's around a 3-to-1 chance, but it's only rated 100, which is fairly low for a horse with aspirations to win a Group 3. He won a course and distance handicap 2 weeks ago off just 94. Now, admittedly, it's only 4-year-old and seems to be going very much the right way. It could be a very fine sprinter by the end of the season, but it'll be a surprise to me, at least, if it's good enough to win this Group 3 against hardened 5-furlong pattern race performers this early in the campaign. Now, the highest rated horse in the field is the Clive Cox trained Tis Marvellous, who's rated 113. In other words, he's assessed almost a stone better than Twilight Calls and runs off level weights with him. He was in really great form last year, Tis Marvellous, but he's never won first time out, and that puts me off him. William Haggis, another trainer in great form, has Hurricane Ivor, who won the Group 3 at Newbury in last September. He's very consistent. He's rated 110. He has twice won first time out, so is a horse worthy of serious consideration. And then an interesting one is Ed Walker's runner, Came From the Dark, who had a run when he was beaten just a neck in this race 12 months ago by Lazuli. The ground will suit him. He won the Group 3 Coral Charge at Sandown last July. And I think he's really interesting for the Ed Walker stable. Arecibo, who beat him last year, he reopposes, and he represents Robert Cowell, who of course is a very good trainer of sprinters. So Came From the Dark, I think he's particularly interesting. But there's a horse I'm really keen on in this race, and I'll be having a bet on this one, a serious bet. I think Cardem is his name, Khaadem, trained by Charles Hills, and the mount of William Buick, which is quite significant. I'll come to that. Now, of course, I'm sure you know Cardem, because back in 2019, as a 3-year-old, he won the Stewards Cup in really impressive fashion off 107. He's been campaigning for much of his career at 6 furlongs, but he's been fairly lightly raced at times, including only 2 runs in 2020, when he was beaten less than 2 lengths in the Group 1 Diamond Jubilee Stakes after going easily just over a furlong out. Just didn't quite get home over the stiff 6. He then ran a similar race when forced to Oxted in the 2020 July Cup. So here we have a horse who's a very high-class sprinter on his day. Now, last year, he looked to be very much on the decline. He really wasn't running very well. His first 6 runs, they ran him over 6 and 7 furlongs, and he did not look the same horse. So then they decided to try a new trick, and they dropped him back to 5 furlongs at the St. Ledger meeting at Doncaster in the Scarborough Stakes on good to firm ground, and he left them for dead. He absolutely bolted up. And I think that's the key to this horse. He needs 5 furlongs on quick ground. And that is what he's going to get pretty much at Newmarket on Saturday. He's had a couple of runs at Meydan in the winter, one of which he ran perfectly well. And the thing for me is that William Buick is back on. He partnered the horse when he won over the 5 furlongs. I think he's got a really big chance as long as the rain stays away. And as long as it does, I'll be on. And at the 12 to 1 each way for 4 places, and that's a general offer across most firms, I think they've got this one wrong, because I think they're assessing Cardham primarily on his 6 furlong form. If you look at his form over 5 furlongs on good to firm ground, to me, he has a leading chance. So 12 to 1 is a very, very tempting price. Cardham, Newmarket, 3 o'clock Saturday, the Palace House Stakes. And now on to the big one. One of the great races of the year, the first classic of the season, the Group 1 Quidco 2,000 Guineas Stakes at Newmarket 340. I'm sure those of you that have been watching racing for a few years will have your own special memories of this race. So many of them, really. For me, I suppose Frankel is the one that always is going to stick in the memory because of that demolition job he did on the field back in, was it 2011? But there have been so many other great 2,000 Guineas winners. I wonder if we're going to see a good horse this year. I think we just might. The race first ran in 1809. Significantly, if you're into stats, I know a lot of you are, 7 of the last 10 winners have come from Ireland, and 4 of the last 7 have been trained by Aidan O'Brien. Now, Godolphin, they have a strong hand in the race with Charlie Appleby's runners, but they haven't won the race, really, technically, since 1999 with Island Sands, although, of course, I'm sure quite a few of you will be shouting at me that Dawn Approach won it for Godolphin in 2013, but he was trained by Jim Bolger, who had been bought by Sheikh Mohammed, and essentially it was a Bolger horse that was running in the Godolphin colours, but it was a horse that had been prepared and trained and bred as well by Jim Bolger. So I really count Island Sands as the last proper Godolphin winner. Now, of course, they've come with plenty of good horses to the race. Remember, Pinatubo a couple of years ago was really strongly fancied. He could only finish 3rd to Kamiko. This year, Appleby has the unbeaten Native Trail, who's surely going to go off a short price favourite, and he could easily win this and win it really well. He doesn't appear to have any flaws in his makeup. A brilliant 2-year-old. He won the Group 1 Dewhurst Stakes, of course. He's rated 122. He's already come out and won the Craven Stakes fairly easily, although I'm not convinced it was a particularly good renewal of the Craven, but he could do no more than win. He's a fabulous looking horse, big, powerful horse, and he is going to take all the beating. But we've seen so many of these good things come to Newmarket and get beat. I wouldn't be interested in even money. Now, his stable companion, Caribus, 2 from 3 as a juvenile, lovely horse. He won the Group 3 Autumn Stakes over the course and distance, rated 115, but he could be a horse who really does improve from 2 to 3. Who knows how he's going to go? He could go really well. Now, Aidan O'Brien, as I said, has won 4 of the last 7 2,000 Guineas. He runs Luxembourg, unbeaten, likely to be ridden by Ryan Moore. 3 from 3 last season, including the Group 1 Vertum Futurity, the old Racing Post Trophy, over a mile. Will he be absolutely spot on? Well, we know Aidan can get them ready, but for me, he looks a Derby horse. It wouldn't surprise me to see him finishing 3rd or 4th in this Guineas and then being the one they all have to beat in the Derby. So I will oppose Luxembourg. And then Aidan O'Brien also has Point Lonsdale, who was a very exciting juvenile, winning his first 4, and then finishing 2nd to Native Trail in the Group 1 National Stakes, where he was well beaten. He could bounce back, who knows. Of the others, well, Richard Farhias, Perfect Power, who won the Group 3 Greenham Stakes over 7 furlongs. He was a fast 2-year-old, very good over 6 furlongs. I'm not convinced he's going to stay. We'll have to wait and see. He is a Group 1 winner, though, as a juvenile. And then there are a couple of dark horses. This is where it gets really interesting. Now, the first of them is Check and Challenge, who's trained by William Knight. He's won both his races. He won a Wolverhampton Maiden in November, and then also on the all-weather track, he won at Newcastle, taking a listed race over a mile a couple of weeks ago in really impressive fashion. Now, he could be anything, and I did note that in a piece this week, it was reported that John Gosden actually believes that Check and Challenge has a really serious chance. He's around a 25 to 1 shot, and I gave him plenty of consideration. But in the end, My choice to spring a surprise in the 2000 Guineas on Saturday is EYDON, 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 trained by the excellent Roger Varian and ridden by a young jockey who is just getting better and better all the time with big race experience, David Egan. So why EYDON? Well, he's had 3 runs and he was beaten on the first 2 of them. He was very unlucky in running actually on his debut when 3rd at Newcastle in a mile novice stakes in December. So he was obviously a late maturing 2-year-old. He then was beaten back at Newcastle in February, beaten a short head, where they made plenty of use of him, and he was caught in the last stride when odds on. So really on the face of it at that point, he wasn't looking like a genuine classic contender. I'll be the first to admit that. But the turning point came when Varian decided to switch him to turf, and he ran him at Newmarket a few weeks ago in the listed Fielden Stakes, which is over 9 furlongs. And this horse, a big, powerful horse, travelled really well. He came down into the dip really well on the outside of the field, and then he quickened up like a proper horse, a serious horse, and he came right away to beat Masakela, who is an excellent yardstick, by 3 1/4 lengths. Now, we know the horse handles the course. We know that he stays because he's won over 9 furlongs and the Guineas is over a mile. And in beating Masakela by 3 1/4 lengths, we have a bit of a yardstick through to the favourite Native Trail, who also beat Masakela, that was last year as a 2-year-old in the Superlative Stakes, but could only beat him by a short head. Now, obviously, Native Trail improved after that, but Masakela continued to run well all last season, and yet he was beaten here by over 3 lengths by EYDON. So I know you can't strictly interpret form across seasons, but I think it's fair to say that EYDON has to have a fair chance of running a really big race. And I think he will have learnt a great deal from that run in the Fielden Stakes. And I'm surprised he's 25 to 1, given he's trained by such a brilliant handler as Roger Varian, who clearly thinks the horse is worthy of a chance. He's 25 to 1 each way, 4 places offered with a few firms still, including the likes of Bet365 and Sky Bet. And I just think that if he is close enough going down into the dip, he will certainly be coming up the hill powerfully, and we'll have to wait and see if he's able to come home fast enough to catch the likes of Native Trail and 1 or 2 others, including Check and Challenge. But it's EYDON who is my choice to win the Guineas on Saturday at Newmarket at 3:40. And then my final selection for the weekend, well, we go on to Sunday, and the final declarations came through not so very long ago for the Quidco 1000 Guineas, the 3:40 at Newmarket on Sunday. This is the Fillies Classic over the mile. 14 runners are declared. The going is expected to remain good to firm in places. Now, this is a really interesting renewal of a race that I like very much. It's a race where so often you do get a little bit of a surprise. You can remember, although not particularly a surprise, but sometimes unfashionable horses like Speciosa, an Attraction, that won the race. And of course, not so very long ago, 66 to 1 shot Bilston Brook popped up and won it for the Hannons. Well, Aidan O'Brien, once again, is the man, as far as the stats go, that you need to have on your side, because he's won 5 of the last 6, and he's got the favourite in Tenebrism, who won 2 from 2 last season, including that remarkable finish to come from way back, steaming up the stands rails to win the Cheveley Park Stakes over 6 furlongs at this track. Will she stay the mile? Well, she's by Caravaggio, who was a cracking sprinter, but her dam was the brilliant Immortal Verse, one of the great milers in her time. So I think there's every chance she will stay, and I'm sure Aidan believes that she's got what it takes. He also runs a horse called Tuesday, who was beaten on a short head on its only run at 2 by Discoveries, Jesse Harrington's Discoveries, who will reoppose on Sunday. But then Tuesday went on to win a Naas Maiden Stakes over a mile recently on its reappearance very easily indeed. This, of course, is a much sterner task, but she is bred to be a very good horse, is Tuesday. And then, of course, Jesse Harrington, as I mentioned, has Discoveries, who beat Tuesday last season. And like Tenebrism, it's having its first run of the campaign, but was a very decent 2-year-old, and there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be thereabouts. Now, Charlie Appleby runs Wild Beauty, who won a Grade 1 in the US over a mile in September of last season, and also won at Newbury, taking the Fred Darling Stakes recently over 7 furlongs. So no stamina doubts, no fitness doubts. The yard absolutely flying, of course. But I just wonder if Wild Beauty has got that touch of class required for a race such as this. Others of interest include George Bowie's Cachet. That one won the Group 3 Nell Gwyn Stakes at Newmarket 19 days ago. Also was third in the Group 1 Fillies Mile, and was only beaten a length in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on the turf in November in America. There are also plenty of other likely surprise packages, including Ger Lyons' Juncture and Roger Varian's Amina. But there are 2 French contenders in this race, and I'm always interested when the French come over to try and raid the big prizes. You'll remember I tipped you the winner of the Champion Stakes at big odds for the French back in the autumn. Well, they've got 2 runners here who took each other on recently and were first and second. The winner that day was Malavath, trained by Francis-Henri Graffard. She was a Group 2 winner at Chantilly in October, and then she was beaten just half a length on firm ground, so the quicker ground will not bother her. That was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf race I mentioned earlier. So Malavath already a winner this season for a very good trainer, and we know will handle the ground. Now, the horse that was second that day at Deauville earlier this month was ZELLIE. And ZELLIE is my choice here, trained by the legendary French trainer, now very much into the veteran stage. He is André Fabre, about 76, 77 now, André Fabre. Tom Marquand will be on board. He's having his first ever ride, I believe, certainly in Britain for André Fabre, so he will be very keen to impress. Now, ZELLIE was beaten a length and a half on its seasonal reappearance by Malavath in that race at Deauville. But you'll pardon me, but for me, that was an exercise run. I've watched the replay a number of times, and the jockey that day never used the whip on ZELLIE. She travelled prominently behind the leaders, seemed to blow up 2 furlongs out in the heavy ground, but then she stayed on again, hands and heels, to get back up for second. And that was over 7 furlongs. This time, she's going over the mile, and she'll be much fitter. And I think that was just a spin, really. You know, I'm not casting any aspersions, but I think she will be much better for that first run of the season. Now, last season, she won the Group 1 Prix Marcel Boussac at Longshot at the Arc fixture. So she's a very classy filly. I know she won it on heavy ground, but I think she won it despite the ground, not because of it. She'd also won on good ground earlier in her juvenile campaign at Saint-Cloud. Now, André Fabre knows everything there is to know about racing, and he must be very confident that 1, she will handle ground on the quick side of good, and 2, she'll be okay running down into the dip at Newmarket. Now, I want you to cast your mind back to 2014 when André sent over a filly called Miss France, who had also run in a Group 3 in France, had a bit of a run out before coming over and winning the 1,000 guineas in really good style. It looks like he has teed this one up for a very similar campaign. The other remarkable statistic here is that André Fabre has had 76 runners on the Rowley Mile at Newmarket over the years, and amazingly, 25 of them have won. That is a 33% strike rate at Newmarket, and almost always in big races. You know, he doesn't send them over for the little tin pot handicaps or a maiden. So that means that 1 in every 3 has won. So effectively on those stats, it should be a 2-to-1 chance given André Fabre's record. Of course, it's not going to be because of the balance of the field. But if you backed all of André Fabre's runners on the Rowley Mile over the years, you'd have a 29 profit to level stakes, £29 profit, and that is a lot. 10-to-1 are the odds on offer for ZELLIE, and that's each way a general price, including the likes of William Hill, Boyle Sports, Bet Victor, Ladbrokes, Betfred and Coral. I think that the French master has teed ZELLIE up for this. I'm really hopeful she's going to run a massive race. I think she has a lot going for her. I'm optimistic she can reverse form with Malavath, and I commend her to you to have a really good look at her for the 1,000 guineas. ZELLIE is my final choice for the weekend. So that is it. Whether you go with these or decide you don't fancy them and you're going to go with whatever you have picked out, I wish you the very best of luck at Newmarket and across any other meetings that take your fancy. Remember, it's the Thirst Cup as well on Saturday, always a very good handicap. But I'll be back same time next week with my selections for you then. I'm not going to be tipping during the week, this coming week, but I look forward to your company next time. And I hope that all our horses selected for this weekend give us a little bit of a shout and at least a good run for our money. So from me, Paul Alster at Sportsbet, is bye-bye for now.